What's up, my cat lovers? Welcome back to another episode of the Cat Dad Show. My name is Scott Colby, and I'm a cat dad to Mia and Nomar, who are in heaven, and now to Nico and Milo. In today's episode, we're going to answer the question: do cats reincarnate? And if so, how does that even work? And I certainly don't know the answer, but fortunately, I have somebody here with me who does. Annie Bourke. Annie, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you here. So I just want to give you a little bit of information about Annie. She's an international best-selling author and international animal communicator, animal medium. That means she has conversations with animals living and in spirit. She conveys messages between them and their humans and provides peace of mind. She wants to help people to understand that animals have souls, that they feel emotions, that they understand everything that we say. Her recently published third book, Crossing the Bridge to Animal Consciousness, was particularly written to support bereaved animal parents, which I love. I'm definitely one of those. So, again, Annie, welcome to the Cat Dad Show. So excited to cover this topic with you because I've heard about mediums and animal communicators, and I don't really know much about it. So I'm going to be learning along with the listeners, and I'm super excited about this. I'm super curious, Annie. Can you share how you first discovered your ability to communicate telepathically with cats and other animals?
Certainly. And through my conversations with animals and my experiences, I understand that telepathic conversations is something that we can all do naturally as children. And if you look at little kids, they will actually squat right down next to an animal and have an intense conversation with them. And they'll tell you what the animal's saying, but most people don't understand that it's genuine. Something happens as we grow up and we somehow switch off that ability, but it's something that we can reactivate again. I'd always thought that my cats could understand me. And I actually used to say to them, I wish I could speak cat because I really wanted to know what they wanted to tell me. And at one stage, I had a little ginger and white girl, which is very unusual because most ginger cats are boys. And sadly, she passed away after a short illness. And it made me feel as though I'd missed an opportunity to get to know her on a deeper level. So she's actually the one who inspired me to look for an animal communication course. And I found one, and there was an image of a ginger cat on the website, and it looked exactly like my cat. So I took that as a sign that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And I started. I had two cats with me at the time, so they became my very patient teachers because I had no idea what I was letting myself into, and did lots of exercises with them. And they just taught me so much. That was over 12 years ago now. And I've just learnt more with every conversation that I've had.
Yeah, that's incredible. And we're going to dive into a lot of different topics, but I'm kind of curious what inspired you to write Crossing the Bridge to Animal Consciousness, and how has it impacted bereaved cat parents?
Okay, so I've actually written three books. So the first book was The Bridge to Animal Consciousness, which was part of my mission is to raise global awareness of the importance of animals. So as you said in the introduction, I really want people to understand that animals understand everything that we say and that they're with us for a purpose. So this was my initial book in this trilogy I'm writing called Bridging Animal Consciousness. So it covers a number of different topics, including animal soul journeys. But I really wanted to write the sequel, which is Crossing the Bridge to Animal Consciousness for bereaved animal parents. I've had to say goodbye to a lot of cats, and I know the devastation that it causes, whether we have a chance to say goodbye to them or if something happens and they end up leaving us when we don't have a chance to say goodbye. And I know the emptiness and the impact of not seeing them around the house when you're used to seeing them in certain spaces. And I know a lot of people don't understand yet that animal souls endure. So when we say goodbye to an animal, they don't exist in a physical presence anymore. Their physical body no longer exists, but they've taught me that their soul endures. So when I have an animal mediumship conversation, I'm connecting with the frequency of that soul on the other side, and we can connect with them at any time. And I want animal parents to know that there is no true separation, that we can always connect with them in spirit and have a conversation and answer their questions. So I've had a conversation with a dog who passed over more than 20 years ago, and it's like having a conversation with you now. It's no different. That energy frequency of their soul is there, and we can connect with them. And then they've taught me a lot about energetic soul visits. And I don't know whether you've experienced this personally, but once our animals have passed over and they've gone through a healing process, they can come back as an energetic presence to visit us and their fur family. So if your cat suddenly starts staring at the wall and you can't see anything there, it's likely that they're picking up that there's an energetic presence there, because they're so sensitive to frequencies that we're not aware of. And I've had people telling me that they've seen their animals running up and down the corridor. Now, to me, logically, that makes no sense because they don't have a physical body anymore. But somehow they can put one on because so many people have told me that. And they feel so relieved knowing that it is normal and they're not going crazy imagining that they've seen their cat. Or we can feel them, and you can feel them if they jump on the bed, they might come up and snuggle next to you. I've had people feeling their animals pat them on the face.
Mm.
One of my cats who's passed over comes back and plays with the back of my hair, on the back of my head, because when he was little, he used to sleep on my pillow, and that's what he'd do. He'd just sit there and massage my head gently through the night. Or they can come back and vocalize. And my girl who taught me about reincarnation, when she was coming back for energetic visits before she came back in a new physical body, used to meow very loudly. So I'd know she was there. And a lot of people have heard their animals vocalizing. They also have the energy to move things. So I've spoken with a cat in spirit, and she would come back and sit behind the blinds in her mum's bedroom and wobble them and made a terrible noise. And she did that when she was living. And she did that when she came back for an energetic visit, just so that her mum would know she was there. So there's lots of things that they can do to help reassure us that their soul has transitioned safely, but they still want to come back and spend time with us and with their siblings, because we go through a grieving process. The other remaining animals in our household go through a grieving process. And our animal who passes away also grieves. They want to stay with the family. So it's really good connections for them to come back to us.
Yeah, I, have a smile on my face just listening to you because, as somebody grieving the loss of my cat Mia, who passed away a year ago, and many of the listeners are also grieving, it almost gives us just some hope and some peace of mind that we're going to be able to, in some way, communicate with our pets that have passed. And I know you can speak to cats, dogs, all kinds of animals. We're kind of gearing this interview towards cats,
Yes.
but it's just, yeah, it's just comforting to hear you speak about this, and really enjoy just seeing if I can see any of those signs that you just named that could be possibilities that, hey, our cats that have passed along are giving us some signs and some energy. And I know you do a lot of work in the realm of reincarnation. Can you explain the
Yep.
concept of animal soul reincarnation and share
Yes.
maybe a memorable cat reincarnation
Yes,
you've witnessed?
certainly. Yes. So you're quite right. I particularly wrote that book to give bereaved animal parents hope.
Mm.
And so often when animals do visit energetically, it's early in the morning, because that's when it's the easiest time for them to transition from the spiritual plane to the physical plane. So you might think you're half dreaming. So it might be like after midnight or before 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of them move their toys around and you know they're not where you left them. So there's little hints, and it's just amazing. And you can ask them to come and visit you energetically. You can't command them because they have free will, but you can certainly say, it will be lovely if you can come and visit me energetically so I know you've been. Or you can ask them to visit you in a dream or a meditation. And my cats in spirit have certainly done that. And I've been able to go and physically pick them up and feel them. And like you can feel them breathing, you can feel them purring. And it's just so reassuring to know that they're still okay and you can maintain that connection. But yes, I knew nothing about animal soul reincarnation till one of my cats let me experience it. And she was one of my original animal communication teachers. And she just suddenly passed away one morning and she had no health issues and she wasn't very old. So it was a huge shock. But I was in the unique position that I knew that I'd be able to have a conversation with her in spirit when she was ready to talk to me. And fortunately, she was able to talk to me that same day. And so I said to her, "What did you do that for?" And she said, "Oh, I needed a new body." Like, doesn't everybody else do that? And I'm thinking, what? And then that was the tone. And then she just said, "Stop being so sentimental. I'm coming back." And she'd been so accurate with everything that she'd been teaching me. I just had to believe her. And people thought it was a really weird grief coping technique to imagine that your animal was going to come back to life. But I had to trust her. So it was a real test of faith. But she told me what she was going to look like. And I rang up the breeder and I said, "This is going to sound really weird, but you're going to have a kitten born who looks like this. And it's really important that she comes back to me." And my breeder said, "Don't worry, you'll get your kitten." And she came back. And my boys weren't worried. She'd obviously told them what she was doing. So they weren't pining. They weren't off their food. I was the one who was upset. But when she came back, it's just such a surreal experience because so many people are just willing their animals to come back and, hug them one more time. And suddenly they're back and you have another lifetime with them. It's just incredible. And it really is the most amazing things that animals have taught me. So, what they've told me is that when they reincarnate, it's an aspect of the soul that comes back in a body. An aspect of the soul stays on the other side. So, I still talk to Riley, who passed over in spirit, and I now talk to her in her new body as Nisha. And they're two aspects of the same soul, very similar characteristics. And sometimes they look identical, sometimes they're completely different, but there will be something that you recognize about them. Now, not every animal is destined to return for another lifetime with us in this lifetime, but many of them do. So it means when I'm having a conversation with them in spirit, I can ask if they're going to be coming back. And if they know that they are, then they can tell me, and they can tell me what species they're going to be, what breed, what color, what gender, often a time frame. And I've had one cat in the UK who actually gave me the specific rescue agency he was going to be at so that his mum could find him. And it is really interesting because most animals come back as the same species, but often a different breed or crossbreed. So I've learnt an awful lot about crossbreeds with dogs and cats with breeds I've never heard of before. Sometimes they have to change gender to come back. Sometimes they're not thrilled about changing gender to come back. But if that's the body that's the first one available for them to get back to their family, then they do that. Uh, and often they will have picked out a new name because when they come back, they're a higher evolved version of themselves because their soul has already had a lifetime here. They've had a soul purpose, they've had soul lessons to learn. And so when they pass over, they integrate those lessons. And when they come back, they have a new soul purpose and new lessons to learn. Now, some of these animals have had multiple lifetimes with us. So some people may now have a childhood pet with them who's come back to have another lifetime with them. And if they're not aware of reincarnation, they won't recognize who they are. They might think there's something familiar about them, but not know why. And sometimes these animals are very vocal because they're trying to tell you who they are. So it's fascinating to me having conversations and finding out what the connections are. And some people feel it and they actually describe their animal as their soul animal or their heart animal. And so subconsciously they're using language showing that they understand the connection, but consciously they're not aware what it is. And some of our animals have had past lives with us, and some of you listening may not be aware of this. But my understanding and experience with conversations is that some of these souls have had multiple lifetimes in the past, and they may have had a past life as an animal with us, or they may have had a past life as a human with us. And they can actually recall their past lives. We can't, they can. So when I have a conversation, they can tell me that they were, a cat I spoke to recently lived in Liverpool in the UK with mum in the 1700s and was a human child, and had 5 siblings, and her name was Alice. So this is the kind of information they can give me in a conversation. It's just incredible. And for people who might be skeptical about the fact that animal souls can reincarnate, I've had experiences with animals where they give me information where there's no possible way I could know it apart from the animal putting that information in my head. And I now know that some of these animals are so intelligent that they give me what I now refer to as a code word, because it means nothing to me, makes no sense with the conversation, but means something significant for the parent. And they know beyond a doubt I'm definitely talking with their animal. So one of the cats in spirit I was speaking to that was going to reincarnate, and she'd chosen to come back as a dog, which is quite unusual. Often they come back as the same species, but she was
Like, "I'll
determined.
show you, I'm gonna be a
She was
dog."
determined to come back as a dog, and she told me she was going to be a terrier. And then partway through the conversation, she said, "Tomatoes." And I'm thinking, why is a cat telling me tomatoes? And so I said to her, "Can you elaborate on that, please?" And she said, "No, it's a test." And I thought, okay. And then I thought, I wonder whether she wants to eat tomatoes as a dog when she comes back. So I Googled, is it safe for dogs to eat tomatoes? And apparently, yes, it is. As long as it's very ripe flesh, they only eat a small amount and no stems or leaves. On this website page is a picture of a terrier with a bowl of tomatoes. And this is about 2 minutes after she's told me she wants to come back as a terrier. And I thought, wow, there's confirmation. So I shared the story with mum, and I sent her the link so she could look at this picture of the terrier with the bowl of tomatoes. And she said, "Oh, Annie, tomatoes are my favourite thing. I eat them every day, and my cat knows that. That's my cat telling me that it's her talking to you." And, it's just, again, amazing that they can send these little messages to their humans so that their humans know that they have transitioned safely and that they're definitely communicating with them. And so I've just had so many experiences now with animals telling me that they're going to be coming back. And that's why I've partly written this book, with lots of the real life stories with my clients. And there's lots of cat stories in there where they've told me who they're going to come back as. So descriptions of the body, the time frame, colours, and that kind of thing. I know a couple of them came back as the opposite gender. One was a girl and she was coming back as a boy, and she was just not impressed at all that she was coming back as a boy, but she really wanted to be back and she wanted to be boss of the household. And what she didn't realise was that her mum actually adopted her sister as well. So she had to put up with coming back as a boy, and she had to put up with having her sister there and sharing her house and the family and not be in the limelight as the sole cat. So their personalities really come through in the conversation, but it is just so rewarding to have your animal back again, and it profoundly affects the grief process, because although they're not exactly the same, you do recognize them on a heart level and a soul level. You get another lifetime of love with them. And it just changes everything. And it's so wonderful for our animals to keep coming back and being with us as well. So that was one of the key reasons I wanted to write that book, was just to let people know that reincarnation is a reality, even if they've not experienced it or heard about it before. And it really just does help the animal with the grief process, and it helps you and it helps your other animals. When they do come back, your other animals won't recognize them to start off with because they're in a different body. They also smell different, and animals rely very heavily on scent, so they don't know who they are. And of course, coming back again, they have a new voice. So they don't recognize the voice either. So it takes about 48 hours before they recognize them on a soul level. And then it's as though they've never left. They've just been away, they've had a full body makeover, and they're back. And they just integrate back into the family. And yes, the dynamics of the family may change because it may be your oldest cat who's passed away. They've now come back in a kitten body, and they're now the youngest of the family. They may think that they're still the boss. So watching how they all sort each other out with the hierarchy is interesting as well. But they do recognise each other. They know everything in the house. They know the humans. They know where their toys are. They know where their beds are. They know where they get fed. It's just really the most phenomenal thing I've understood since talking to animals.
Annie, you're blowing me away. These stories,
You've got a gorgeous cat behind you
I
too on your
love
chair
them.
listening,
Ah,
and that's what they do because
yeah.
they understand everything that we say. They'll be intrigued because they now know what you know.
That's great. So, Annie, if I wanted to know if Mia was gonna be reincarnated, what would be the process that you would take me through, or if somebody
Yep.
else that was coming to you?
Can I just tell you, she is.
She is. Okay.
Yes, I'm getting absolute confirmation. So this is one of my spiritual gifts called clairsentience. And so if someone says something to me that's the truth, I get a reaction in my body and go all buzzy, and I'm all buzzy. So yes, she is coming back, which
Yeah.
is very exciting. So there you go.
That's
If I had a conversation with her on your behalf,
mm,
you would need to work out what questions you want me to ask her. And so the common question I'm getting now, as more people are aware that reincarnation can happen, is if it's your destiny to come back, can you give me details? And then that's an open question. And then they can tell me, yes, I'm coming back. I'm going to be a male chinchilla kitten. I'm going to be white. I'll be back in about 3 months' time. You'll find me online. That's the kind of information they give me. And what I offer to people is that, once they start looking for that particular animal, if they find a photo, to send it to me, and then I can connect with their animal and work out, is this the body that they're moving into if their soul hasn't swapped in already. So swapping the soul in is something that your animal negotiates with the animal whose body they want to come back in. So the soul that's in the animal swaps out and goes back to the other side so that your animal's soul can swap in to come back to you. And that can happen at any age. So they don't have to swap in at conception, like when the kitten's being conceived. They can swap into older animals. And a lot of rescue animals, they might be up to 3 years old when they swap in. But that's the kind of information that they will give me. They can give me colours, and I've learnt an awful lot about different colours with different breeds. One of the cats I was speaking to in spirit told me she was going to come back as a male lilac Tonkinese cat. And I wasn't sure whether Tonkinese cat actually had lilac as one of their colour patterns. So, of course, I do all this research, and yes, they do. And mum found this absolutely gorgeous lilac boy, and he's now home, having a lovely relationship with mum and with his sister cat. So it's I don't know how they find these bodies to come back in, but it's just what they do, and negotiate with them. And if something happens and that body is not available to work, so maybe that animal is unwell, or if the breeder for some reason decides not to let them be available for adoption, then your animal soul will find another body to come back in. If it's their destiny to come back, they will persist until they're back with you. They're meant to be back with you. So other questions you might ask Mia, you know, what does she want to tell you? And that's a brilliant question because it's open, and whatever she's been wanting to tell you and never had the opportunity to tell you, she can now tell you. Often they will reveal their past life connections with you and give me information about that so that you know. That all depends on how many questions you want to ask, what what the conversation is. I don't have the parents with me when I have a conversation because when you're talking telepathically, you actually hear the voices in your head. It's not audible in your ear. The most bizarre sensation hearing voices in your head and you think you're going crazy. And animals all talk in different voices, just like humans do. So different tones, different accents. I had some parents telling their animal that I was going to be having a conversation with them just to prepare them. And so when I introduced myself and asked consent, which is what I have to do because a conversation is a free will choice for animals, I can't force them to have a conversation. And so I introduced myself, and this animal said, "Hey, dude, I've been waiting for you to talk to me." So you just never know what they're going to say. And they really let their personalities shine through. Like some of them are real comedians. Tell me really funny stories, and I just laugh. Uh, so, yes, hopefully that's answered your question about
That
all of the
that's
questions that you can
yeah.
ask. And she
I didn't
definitely
know that.
back.
Okay, so then I'm gonna have to get more information from you about that. What signs or behaviors might indicate that a new cat in the family is the reincarnated soul of a previous pet?
Often you notice something similar about them. It may be the way that they move. So my cat, when she reincarnated, she used to hunker down when she walked, and she does the same thing now. She used to sit on the back of my recliner chair and groom my hair because I'm part of her tribe. She does the same thing now. She didn't like strangers last time and she'd hide if anyone came to the house. She does the same thing now. So you will notice some similar behaviors. Sometimes you see a lot. Sometimes it takes a while for some of the behaviors to come through because they have to adapt to being in a new body. It's different to last time. And that was one of the questions I actually asked them for this book. What is it like for them to come back in a new body? And they said it's like putting on a new suit and they've got to get used to their flexibility and power and see what they can do in a new body. But really, the answer to your question is you'll feel it in your heart and you just recognize them on a soul level. Uh, you might cry when you see them for the first time, whether you're seeing their picture online or when you actually get to hold them again for the first time. It's a very emotional thing having your animal back again. So you really feel it intensely.
So Mr. Milo over here, or
Yep.
there
Yes.
he is.
Yes.
So
Ignoring us, but listening.
he may have been another animal in a previous life.
He could have been.
Could have been.
Yes, he was.
He was. You already
Yep.
know that.
Yep, I'm going buzzy again.
Okay. And Nico over here could have been an animal in a previous life.
Yep,
He was,
both of them.
but we don't
Both of
know.
them have been animals before.
Oh my gosh.
And that's the thing, some of them may have had multiple lifetimes. One of my cats showed me, and that's one way they can communicate as well. They can actually show you images or little video snippets. Somehow they put that in your head, so it's not just verbal. They can communicate with images. And he showed me an image of us at the Great Pyramid in Egypt thousands of years ago. So he's shown me and told me that our souls have kept reconnecting over thousands of years. And he's had some human lifetimes with me and he's had some cat lifetimes with me. So in Egypt, he was an Abyssinian cat and he's shown me that. So, yes, um, I spoke to a pair of sister cats in spirit and they'd both been horses in a previous life with their mum. And they were able to give me the details about that, what breed of horses they were and when that lifetime was. So they don't have to have been cats in a previous lifetime. One of
What?
the cats
Are you a horse, Violet?
cats I had a conversation with showed me that he was a pink and black pig with his human dad in the Midwest Americas, um, and in the 1800s. And when I did the research, the Midwest America opened up in the 1800s, and pig farming was one of their agricultural practices. When I told Dad all of this information, he said, "My parents are pig farmers." And, like, there's all these synchronicities that happen, like, there's just no coincidences, like, seeing that image of the terrier with the bowl of tomatoes. Things just happen and you get signs.
I don't wanna leave Nomar out. My other cat
Yes,
that passed
yes, in
away a
spirit.
few
Yes.
years ago.
Mhm.
See if he is going to be reincarnated, or maybe he already is.
I'm not getting a strong reaction at the moment,
Okay.
and sometimes it takes them a while to be ready to come back.
Mm.
So one of the dogs in spirit I spoke with passed over almost 6 years ago,
Oh, okay.
and he's now come back, and he's back with mum as a dog, but that is a long wait for them to come back.
Mhm.
And so when I first spoke to him, he didn't say anything about that he was reincarnating in this lifetime. He said that they would have future lives together, but that was all he told me. So whether he wasn't ready to come back or whether something else was going on, I don't know, but he's now definitely back. And he was able to tell us all the details so that mum would find him and exhibiting all the same behaviours that he did last time around. So I'm only getting a slight buzz with no mask, so I think he's not ready to give information about that yet.
Okay. Ah,
Yeah.
Nomar, come
So
on,
you gotta
buddy.
wait.
It's been almost 5 years. Okay. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for that information. Annie, what advice do you have for cat parents who are hoping to reunite with their pet's reincarnated soul, but they're not really sure where to start? What should they be doing?
Okay. So you can talk to your animals all the time verbally, and they understand what you're saying. So whether they're in spirit or whether they're physically with you now, they will understand and hear you. So you can ask your animal in spirit for a sign if they're going to be coming back. And it's interesting because one of the dogs I've had a conversation with has had 3 lifetimes in a row with his mum in this lifetime, and he's about to come back and have his 4th lifetime with her as a dog. And he's told her a name to consider, and this name just keeps appearing randomly in all sorts of places. It was written on a piece of paper that floated into a memorial garden for an animal that one of my friends found. She doesn't know the dog, but she knew the story. Uh, it appeared as a name of a restaurant. It was embroidered on someone's hat. It appears as a clue in word puzzles. It's just quite bizarre, but they can get signs through to us. Or you might just suddenly start thinking about them very strongly and they are trying to send you a message. So, what I do when I have a conversation with an animal, when someone wants to find out about them, I need to get photos of them. So, I want to see their face with their eyes open, like you can see of my boy Teeny on the banner behind me, and their name because I introduce myself to them and I ask permission to have the conversation. And I explain that you have questions that you'd like them to answer, and would they be happy to answer them? And as I said, it is a free will choice for them, but I've had no domestic animals refuse the opportunity to answer their parents' questions because it also gives them a chance to pass on their personal messages to you as well. And, as I've said, it can be very quick when your animal reincarnates, and sometimes you do have to wait years. And I don't understand all the information about why that happens yet. I get told bits of information at a time and I have to understand them and integrate them, and then I can write about them and share that information. So if Nomar is planning to come back, but it's not just quite time yet, then he will let you know closer to the time.
He's making me wait a little bit longer, I
Yeah, yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. Good things are worth waiting for. I had
Yeah.
to do the same, like when my boy cat passed away that had been with me in Egypt. It took him a long time to find a body to come back in. The first body that he tried, that didn't work out, so he had to wait and find another body. So whereas my girl who taught me about reincarnation, she her soul came into the kitten body when it was conceived, and she was back quite quickly. It was only a matter of months from when she passed away to when she was back again. So it's very variable. So there's no easy answer to your question, unfortunately.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's good information. So I've put together a resource to help people move through their pet loss grief. If you're interested in it and you're watching, just type the word grief in the comments and I'll make sure to get it to you. Have you ever wondered what profound spiritual connection humans and animals might share? I've got Annie Burke here to answer that for us. Annie, I want to dig into this concept of the phrase soul pet, soul dog, soul cat. What does that actually mean? Because I've heard people use the terminology. I've used the terminology because I think Mia was my soul cat. What does
Hmm.
that actually mean? Can you shed some light on?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I've actually written about that in my book as well, because it does come up so much. And what I understand is that when people use those phrases, they recognize subconsciously that there is a really profound connection with their animal, but consciously they don't know why. I've had someone say to me, I've had 10 dogs. Why do I feel so differently with this one? So they can feel it. They know there's something there, but they don't understand what it is. And when I have a conversation, that's when I find out that, yes, you do have a past soul connection with that animal. So your souls have known each other before. So, Mia could have been your child or your partner in a past life. There's so many ways that the souls can be connected, but it's having that conversation and understanding what that connection is. Or they may have had multiple lifetimes. So Mia might have been a cat with you in a past life, and she might have been a human with you in a past life. Um, and it's mind boggling working it out. But I mean, that's what my cat who was with me in Egypt has taught me, that he's had multiple lifetimes with me. And that's what I understand now, that we must have some kind of soul contract where we agree to keep reincarnating with each other and supporting each other through multiple lifetimes. So I think the animals that I've got with me now are healers. Animals take on roles with us. So they might be a healer, they might be a teacher, they might be a guardian, or they can be a combination of all of those. So my cats are definitely teachers and healers, and some of them are guardians as well. And so they can support our soul purpose because they know what our soul purpose is and they know what our soul lessons are. And so they can teach us. Once we can communicate with them telepathically, then they can teach us. So when I wrote this book, my cat on the front cover, the one that taught me about reincarnation, actually dictated the introduction to the book.
Okay.
And then my cat, who's on the banner behind me, told me a whole number of topics that I needed to include in the book because he knew the power of the words in there to help activate awakening in people who are going to read it. And he explained that animals can help us accelerate our spiritual development, our spiritual evolvement, and certainly expand our conscious awareness. And then he dictated the last chapter. And it's just fascinating because the way they talk, people have no idea. I have people saying to me, it's a dog, it knows no and walk, and that's about it. And I'm here to tell you otherwise. So, one of the things he said was a key learning that animals want you to recognize is your connection with source or God, whatever you term it, nature, and each other. Everything living consists of energy and vibrational frequency, and everything living is connected. There is a living consciousness of interconnectedness, even though you don't understand that you can consciously connect. So many people don't understand yet that you can communicate with animals and have profound conversations that change your lives. And that's all part of that soul connection that you're referring to as well, that there's a purpose that that animal soul is with you and it's working out why they're with you. And once you understand that, then that just profoundly changes your relationship with them as well. You get to know each other on a much deeper level. And certainly with me now, being able to talk to my cats telepathically compared to the cat that I've had earlier before I could talk, the relationships are very different because they can tell you what they want when they want to. and you can ask them questions and get answers to all sorts of things. And I'm just so curious about this whole story about soul journeys and why the animals are with us, and understanding more about their deep spiritual connection with us. And that's partly the question that you've asked about the soul animal or the heart animal. It's that recognition of that soul in that body, whatever they've been in a past life, we recognize and feel that love connection with them.
Yeah, and I think with like Nomar and Mia, I felt a strong bond with both of them. Nomar passed away first, and then Mia, her last 2 or 3 years, she had some illnesses.
Yeah.
And so, especially in that last year where I felt like I'm her caretaker 24/7, and I rearranged like my life around that, but I was more than happy to do so because I just wanted the absolute best for her. It was just that bond of taking care of her when she was sick, trying to make her as comfortable as possible, that I felt our bond just tightened even more, and I thought it was beautiful. Yeah.
They really respond to that because they're actually healing us behind the scenes and doing a lot for us energetically that we're not aware of. One of the things they do, they actually help evolve our heart, which is one of the key lessons we need to learn in our experience in life. And they help us to experience unconditional love. You know, you can't say to an animal, love me. It's just something that they innately do. And there's so many things about having an animal's presence with you that helps with your healing. So that, you know, being in an animal's presence, they can help reduce your stress levels and your production of stress hormones. They increase your production of happy hormones. They can lower blood pressure, reduce the risk of stroke. They help avoiding isolation. So for people on their own, having an animal is just a godsend because it means they have a purpose. They've got to get up in the morning and feed the animal. If it's a dog, they've got to go and take it for a walk. They have to socialize, interact with other animal parents. Uh, there's also research being done about cat purring. So the frequency of cat purring actually helps with bone healing. And I can attest to that because I fractured my shoulder quite severely a couple of years ago. And one of my cats, who has the loudest purr in the family, knew, and she just spent a lot of time purring directly over my shoulder. And I got a lot of movement back very quickly. So it's just incredible how attuned that they are to our health, and our emotional well-being, so they can do things to make us laugh when we're feeling unhappy, to cheer us up. So that they're giving us a lot of healing, and it's really lovely to be able to reverse that. And I've been in the same position with one of my cats, and I just said, you know, I'm happy to look after you as long as you want to be here. I don't want you to stay just for my sake, because sometimes animals don't want to leave us, and they might stay a bit longer than they should have just because they really want to keep supporting us. And I said, "But you just need to give me a sign and let me know when it's your time to go." And that was something I had to learn as well, that it is an act of love to let our animals go when it's their time to go. I hoped that he would be able to pass on his own, but he wasn't able to. So I had to get assistance to help him pass over. But that's what he wanted. And you can do all sorts of beautiful things as a ceremony to honor them. He loved crystals and essential oils and Reiki. So we did a little session of that before it was his time to pass. I've spoken to a vet who does a home euthanasia service. So you can actually have your animal at home with your other animals there so they know what's going on. It's important you explain to them what's happening to the animal, and why they can't see them anymore. They need to have that information to help with the grief process as well. And it's really hard because you're grieving. If you've got other humans in the family, they're grieving, your animals are grieving. Your animals will know that you're sad and will be trying to cheer you up, but they also need to have support as well. So it's just a tough time for everyone. But there are some things that we can do to help travel through that grief journey to make it a bit more bearable. And then obviously knowing that we can communicate with our animals and get answers to questions. So if people weren't there when their animal passed away or they don't know why they passed away, Was it their time? Was there something else they should have picked up earlier to help them? All of those kind of things. We carry a lot of grief and guilt and remorse and regret, and our animals don't want us doing that. So they can answer the questions, and then we can get that peace of mind. And that helps with the grief journey as well.
I love that because I was going to bring up this emotion of guilt. I'm, I've been in the presence of a lot of people who are grieving the loss of their pet through just being in a Facebook group, other people grieving. And it seems like guilt seems to be that uh, most common emotion that people are feeling, like, you know, whether the animal got hit by a car or they didn't do enough to save them or whatever the case may be. And I felt it with the passing of Nomar, my first cat, because he didn't have a diagnosis of any illness. And he just kind of suddenly started to decline. And a couple days later, it seemed like we had to make that decision to say goodbye. And then afterwards, of course, I'm playing the guessing game like, "Gosh,
Yep,
did I do enough? Maybe he
yep.
could have gotten a second opinion, or just let's let him be for a couple more days and see what happens." And the guilt is tremendous, and it can be crippling for years, and it seems like if we can communicate with them like you do, they can reassure us, right?
Absolutely, and they don't want us feeling those emotions either. They know that we're acting out of love, we're making the decisions based on what we're told. No animal has told me that they didn't agree with the decisions that their family made on their behalf. Some animals have actually told me that, they if it didn't happen then, they knew that they were due to pass away, like, within a couple of weeks, and it was actually a relief to be out of pain. So they don't want us feeling guilt. And, it's easy to play the blame game and, what if, what if, what if? I spoke to one dog in spirit whose family was still feeling a lot of guilt and regret about, you know, could they have let him have a longer quality life if they'd picked up something wrong with him earlier? And when I spoke with him, he told me he'd had a blood clot. Now, he knew that it was something random, nothing that the parents could have done to prevent it. He didn't hold any grudges against them. And that gave them so much peace then, knowing that it was out of their control and it was just something that had happened. And that's, again, how the power of a conversation can really help because you get answers to questions and you know that your animal is okay. And yeah, it can just let a lot of those emotions that are just eating you up, affecting your sleep, affecting your health, affecting your quality of life. You can just let all of that go and know that your animal is safe and get reassurances about their love for you and their gratitude for how you cared for them.
Are you missing your cat on the other side and you want to get a message? And do you know what signs to look for? So we've got Annie here. I know we touched on this before, but would love to maybe go over this again because I know some people, especially the people that are maybe recently have lost their pet, and they just want to know what signs to look for that their pet may be trying to communicate with them. You mentioned dreams, and that's the one that I've had. Mia's come into my dream. Well, Nomar has as well, but more recently, Mia, I remember just a very vivid dream of her. And the thing that I loved the most was she was well. She was running like her last few months, her mobility was really poor. And in the dreams, she was well. She was jumping, she was playing, and like it was so vivid. And then I woke up and I was like, God, I thought Mia was alive still.
Yep,
But
and that's real, and that's what I want you to know, that what you felt and saw is real, so she's letting you have that experience to know that she's okay on the other side, and that's what happens, that once they transition, they go through a healing process, so whatever physical ailments they had, mobility issues, diseases, not being able to breathe, chest pain, all of that kind of stuff, that all gets healed. And I see images of them just like that running around like young kittens and young puppies. I've spoken to a rhino who passed away and he was just charging across the field as though there was nothing wrong with him. So, and it's beautiful that they can come back like that. So in dreams and in meditations, And you can verbally invite them to come and visit you. I was going buzzy when you were telling me that story about Mia visiting you. So I know she definitely came back to do that, which is just lovely. And you can just say, look, I'm really missing you. I'd love you to come back in a dream or a meditation or an energetic visit when you can. And it's up to them to come back and see you when they can. But as you said, that just gives you so much peace and joy to have that connection with them again and physically see them, physically feel them, physically hear them. And as I said, I've had that with some of my cats now, and I can pick them up and hold them. I can hear them purring. I can feel their body vibrating as they're purring and as they're breathing. And it's just so calming and reassuring that they can come in and do that. So signs in the house, they can move things around. One of the dogs that came back was sitting on his favourite cushion, and he said Mum would see an indent in the cushion where he was lying, and she did. Uh, they can move their toys around, so you can go to bed knowing that everything's okay. But when you wake up, there might be a toy sitting in the middle of the floor that definitely wasn't there when you went to bed. So someone's obviously been moving something. They can create quite a lot of energy when they come back for a visit. So, someone's dog who came back jumped on the bed with such force that 2 pillows fell off the bed. And another lady's dog came and visited her through her doggy door and nearly scared her to death because she could hear the doggy door going bang, 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 can't see anything. And she used to tease the dog all the time. So, this is the dog getting revenge, teasing mum coming back for a visit. Um, that mum, when the dog is around, all her hairs on her arms stand on end. So that's a sign for her that the energy of her dog is around her. She's actually sensitive to that and can feel it. And as I said, if your animal in spirit comes back, your other animals will be aware. They're really sensitive to presences that we can't sense or see. And they normally just stare at something intensely like the wall. And you're thinking, what's so interesting on the wall? You can't see anything. And it's because they're picking that up. I had to speak to a young cat who was showing some very strange behaviors, and it turned out that his brother cat in spirit was visiting, but he didn't recognize it as his brother. He must have been a very young soul and wasn't aware that souls in spirit could come back for a visit. So he's actually scared of his brother until we worked that all out and explained it. And then he was absolutely fine. So they have to adjust to it as well. You may hear your animals, so you can hear them vocalizing. I've had people hearing their birds tweeting, the dogs barking. I've heard my cat meowing. I've got Maine Coon cats, and they make a funny vibrational noise in their throat called trilling. And I've spoken to a few other Maine Coon mums, and they've actually heard their cats in spirit trill when they come back for a visit, so they know they're definitely there. Or you can feel their touch, so they might come and snuggle next to you in on the bed, and you just think, "I can feel them," but they're not there, but you can feel them, so somehow they can help us to feel their physical presence. I've got someone else I know whose dog, used to smell like popcorn, so when the dog comes to visit now, she can smell popcorn, and so she knows her dog is there for a visit. So they're very creative with how they let us know that they're spending time with us, and they do love spending time. Often they come back and just, they're on the bed with us, watching us when we're sleeping. They just want to check that we're okay. But it's just that thing that we just invite them. We don't expect them, we don't command them, but we just let them know it would be lovely if they could come back and be with us and comfort us.
What a gift you have, Annie. I want to be able to communicate with the afterlife animals, but also the ones that are still here. My friend Lori, her cat Remy, she'll Remy will be making all kinds of sounds, and Lori's like, "What do you want? I fed you, I played with you, I petted you," and I had no clue what you're saying. It must be amazing to be able to communicate with our cats that are here as well. Gosh.
Yep. And often with those animals, when you've done all those things and they're being very vocal, they're
Mm.
trying to tell you something. And I've had conversations with cats like that. And it's because they've had a past life with you and they want you to know who they are. They want you to recognize the soul in the body. And once you know, then they can relax because you know, and that changes your relationship again. And I've spoken to a cat like that. Mum said he was being very vocal and she didn't know why. And he'd changed some of his behavior in the house. So he wasn't very happy about something. When we had the conversation, it worked out that it was actually her son who died prematurely. So he was very young when he passed away and he'd come back in a cat body. And it was really interesting because when they met him, they were in a pet shop and they weren't actually looking for a pet. And her son, who was born after the first son passed away, said, "We need to take this cat home." He didn't know why, but he could feel that connection. And when we had the conversation, we worked out why. So the cat knew um, about the brother and has a very close bond with the brother, but also a very close bond with mum. So after we had the conversation, the cat stopped vocalizing as much and all the behavior went back to normal. He could just relax and just really enjoy having that longer relationship with mum than he did the first time around. So you just don't know what's going on and why they're wanting to tell you something. And yeah, just getting the answers really helps them and it helps you.
Yeah. And let's kind of begin to wrap up. I want to ask you kind of maybe one final question, then maybe we can share some resources. But how do you mentor cat parents and animal professionals to develop their own skills in telepathic communication with cats?
Great question. So I actually offer a mentorship program where I work with animal parents and animal professionals to master the different facets of telepathic communication. So, as we talked about earlier, animals communicate verbally. They can communicate visually, so by sending us pictures or videos. They can also send us feelings and emotions. So, in the mentorship program, I do exercises with all of these different kinds of activities so that the parents and professionals can master those with their animals. So we work one on one and work with two living domestic animals. So if people don't have two domestic living animals at the moment, they can work with my cats, and my cats have now worked with a few clients and they're just absolutely loving it. We do mentorship sessions fortnightly and we do it live. So it's on Zoom. You don't have to have the animal there, but we're just connecting with them and asking questions and receiving answers. And we just do progressively more complex questions and conversations. And during the course, we actually do some mediumship conversations. So we connect with animals in spirit. And so by the end of that, you can talk to your animals, you can talk to other people's animals, you can do what I do, going to zoos and talking to animals there because not a lot of people go and talk to them. And you can also connect with animals in the wild. So telepathic communication is how animals talk to each other within their own species and also between species. And it just what they tell you will change your world. It certainly changed my world, knowing that they know so much and that they can teach us so much and help us so much.
That's incredible. You can go to a zoo and talk to all the animals there.
Oh, yeah, they
My
just love
gosh.
it. I've only had 2 animals at zoos who didn't wanna talk to me. One was an iguana, and he just sat there and he didn't wanna say anything, and I have to respect it, if they don't wanna talk, I can't force them to talk, and one was a peacock. And he was a bit freaked out that a human could talk telepathically, and he was going, "Who's saying that? What's going on? This has never happened before." Could just feel the tension in him, the poor thing. So I said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I didn't wanna stress you out." I just left him and I just kept walking and talking to other animals. But they are just so funny. And I was talking to a koala at a zoo, and he spent the whole time looking away from me. He was listening and he was talking. And I said to him at the end, "Would you mind turning your head around so I can take your photo, please?" And his head just very slowly turned around and he looked at me. So, yeah, they know exactly who's talking to them. They're quite funny.
Well, I know you're in Australia, but you need to come over to Tennessee here and we can go to a zoo together. I've been at a
Yep. Oh, look, it's so much just what they do. And like I was at a zoo in the UK and it was a really hot day, which is unusual for the UK. And all the lions were lying down in the shade. And I thought, I really want to see the lions. So I connected with the male and I said, "Look, I've come all the way from Australia and I'd really love to see you. Would you mind putting your head up so we can see you?" And they're all these school kids there on excursions, and they're all roaring at the lions and yelling at them to wake up, and of course, the lions are just ignoring them. But all of a sudden, this lion just sat up and he looked straight at me so I could take his photo. And the lady next to me said, "He's looking straight at you." And I said, "Yes, I know. I asked him to." So, and then he, posed for the photos, and then the next thing, back down in the shade again.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
they're happy to oblige, when they can, but they certainly understand what you're saying. And I spoke to another lion and I said I was sending him love.
Good.
And he said, "I'm returning that threefold." The intensity of heat and energy I felt in my heart was incredible. So, some of them are really powerful healers and they just love the opportunity to talk to humans,
Mm.
and, have conversations and let you know what's going on in their world. They love being asked questions. They love sharing their wisdom.
I love it. Annie, this has been great. Before we kind of close out, can you share some resources where we can maybe get a hold of you, learn more about you, get your book, whatever you want to share, please?
Yep. Great. Thank you. So my website is www.cosmicheartintuitive.com.au. Now, on the front page, I've got 4 free guides for animal parents, which you're welcome to download. So I've got one about coping with pet loss. I've got one about animal communication. I've got one about rescuing the rescues, because there's lots of things we need to take into account with having a rescue animal, and also how to introduce a new animal to your household with less stress and more harmony. So they're all there. My books, and I've got 3 books. So I've got my 2 animal books
Mm.
and my book about spiritual awakening. For those of you in Australia, you can contact me directly and I can send you the book. For everyone outside of Australia, you can purchase the books through your local Amazon shop. Now, I also offer free online masterclasses for animal parents every month about all sorts of different topics. So I've talked about reincarnation, coping with bereavement, how to understand your animal, soul secrets animals have shared with me, lots of different topics, animals and healing. So I advertise those on social media. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. If you look up Annie Bourke, Bourke, you'll find me. And I also offer animal conversations, which we've been talking about. So whether that's with an animal who's living or in spirit, I do offer packages where we can talk to 2 animals and ask questions and share them between them. And my animal mentorship program, which we've just been talking about, where you can learn how to talk with your own animals, living and in spirit. So the easiest way to contact me is by email, and that is chintuitive@bigpond.com. Or you can message me on social media or send a message through my website. There are lots of different ways to connect. I also have a YouTube channel, and I've been recently loading lots of the reincarnation stories so that people understand firsthand what animal parents experience going from heartbreak to happiness, with that journey of understanding that their animal is coming back again, and the reunion and how they feel. And it's really powerful. It's wonderful for our animals as well as for us to have that reunion. And I've also started writing, uh, loading some little videos called Ask Annie, because people have been asking really fascinating questions. So I've just been making little short videos just answering the questions from what animals have taught me. So that's on my YouTube channel. So all of those different ways to connect. But yes, email is good.
Amazing. I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes so people don't have to remember and write things down. It'll
Mhm.
be easy access. And I've watched some of your reincarnation videos on YouTube. They've been really heartwarming, and thank you for sharing those for sure. And Annie, just want to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing. I mean, incredible, just really helping to heal people who are grieving the loss of their pet and being able to communicate with them in the afterlife and the reincarnation. And This conversation gave me some peace and comfort myself, and just loved having you as a guest on the Cat Dad Show. And I appreciate it. So thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. And I'll also be offering your listeners some special offers to access some of my services and my books. So I'll provide that information as well as a thank you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. We'll make sure to get that to all the viewers and listeners out there. Those of you watching, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.